Hello, everybody, and welcome to this first episode of what I hope to be a weekly series of card reviews done by none other than me, TomSoniQ. In this video, I'm going to review all the cards that got into the game this week, which is Season 2, Week 4. I'm also going to rate all the cards on a scale from 1 to 5. Star ratings, most of you should be familiar with them. If you aren't, it's pretty much just means that if I give a card 1 star, it means that the card is very unlikely to see play and is generally relatively bad and might need a buff. And 5 stars means this card is really strong and it's definitely going to see play and it might need a nerf. And everything in between that is pretty much on a gradient. So 2 stars means the card isn't that bad. Maybe it's going to see play, but it's rather unlikely. 3 stars means the card is solid. It might very well see play, but it also might not. 4 stars means the card is very likely to see play and is generally strong. And yeah, also I'm going to probably use decimals as well. So I might give a card 3.5 stars, meaning that it's stronger than the normal 3 stars cards and but not as strong as a 4-star card. Also, I'd like to note that there's another person doing card reviews right now, which is Empty Folder. You should definitely go ahead and check out his reviews as well. He writes nice articles on the subreddit. I'm going to link the latest one in the description. And he also uses a 5-star system, so I guess you can compare the ratings or something. And also, I think you could also listen to the podcast show by Stranger Side. In my reviews, I'm going to basically just talk about how strong I think the cards will be, and on his show, he talks more about the design of the cards and stuff like that. I was also featured on that show last week, so that's something. I will link the latest episodes in the description as well. And yeah, I think that would be pretty much it. So let's jump right into the reviews. So the first card that got in this week is Cave Wyrm. 3 mana, 2/3 mind unit, a dinosaur from Angia, flying and +2 max mana when you play a card, lose this ability. And I think this card is actually quite strong. It seems pretty innocent on the surface, but this card is essentially a 2/3 flyer for 3 that also gives you 2 mana on the next turn, which can mean that you play this on turn 3 and then on turn 4 you can play a 6 mana unit. So one could say that it's pretty much a 1 mana 2/3 flying, which is obviously very strong. Now it doesn't directly translate to that, of course, because you can only play it on turn 3, and if your opponent uses something like a Thought Bolt on it, then you won't get the 2 max mana. But I think that if this card sticks to the board, you can get quite the advantage out of it. So you can use this to ramp into cards like Soul Shredder or the Thunder Hydra. Also, this card is relatively good if you play it later on, because if you want to play some high cost card, then this can ramp you into that. So I can envision a world in which you play this in your typical control Rictic, and you play this on turn 7, so that on turn 8 you can play your Celestial Hourglass. Of course, this is like, after all, this can be removed relatively easily, but I think this card has a lot of potential. Of course, you're going to see it in all the blue flying decks if those become a thing. The blue flying decks, of course, but maybe also the red ones, because maybe they want to run Penumbra or something. But yeah, this card is surprisingly strong. The only problem that it has is that right now Mind is in a pretty awkward spot where Rictic is pretty much just late game control. Turn 10 I win with my Celestial Hourglass, and Ashgurdy is basically not a thing. So I don't know how many decks this would fit in, but I think going forward this could be one of the things to look out for in my deck. So I think this is a 4-star card, and maybe even a bit stronger. But I'll go with 4 stars because it's in a pretty bad meta for it right now. But aside of that, a lot of potential, a really strong card. Next up we have Field Hack. 5 mana action from Mord Stahl. Strength also. 2 enemy units duel each other. That's the whole effect. It's a removal card for red, which is something that it already has a lot of. For 5 mana, it's quite expensive. The thing is, 2 enemy units dueling each other can vary on its value a lot. So if your opponent has a lot of small units, that's relatively useless. And if your opponent has 2 10-10 units and you make them duel each other, that's a lot of value. But this is also where I see the main weakness of the cards, because I think oftentimes you will find yourself in a situation where your opponent has units with higher HP than attack, and also usually your opponent will not have 2 units with the same stats. So if your opponent has, say, a 6-7 and a 3-4, then this card will be able to kill the 3-4, and the other unit will just be wounded a bit, but you won't be able to kill it. So for 5 mana, it's rather inconsistent. Also it has a problem that in strength you already have a lot of other good removal cards, like Gone with the Wind, Fork, which got in recently, or also just Master Jouster combined with other cards. So I don't really see this being played too often. Maybe in very control-ish lists, maybe combo decks, but I think there you probably also have better alternatives. But it's not a weak card per se, but I think it just doesn't really have a place in the meta right now, and also it's probably too inconsistent. So I think this card is 2.5 stars, because like I could see this seeing play. Like it's not going to be too terrible, and sometimes it can get you a lot of value, but Collective is a game where consistency is often very, very much the essence of which cards you put into your deck, and I think that this card just doesn't compare very well with other alternatives. The third card of the week is a very nice one. It's the Grand Ginkgo, a legendary plant from Antera, 5 mana, 3/7. When you gain HP, choose a friendly plant to gain the same amount. And when a friendly plant is destroyed, shuffle it back into your deck. Obviously, this card is meant to support plant decks, mainly in that, because what I think is very important about this card is the 3/7 set line means that if you play this in that, not only will your opponent have a very hard time trying to kill it, but also it basically ensures you that you will get the 1 XP from that passive. This obviously synergizes very well with cards like Baleful Pumpkinkin, or like the Sweet Sand Kodama, or really just any other plants that gain you HP. Also, it has a nice combo with the Beat Monitor, which you can play for 6 mana, because whenever you lose HP, then that Beat Monitor will give you that HP back to you, and damage itself equal to the HP you lost, and if you have the Grand Ginkgo, then you will be able to give the beat monitor the HP back. So essentially, you are unable to be killed if you have this combo on board. Yes, of course you can just destroy one of the plants with some removal, but I think that the Grand Ginkgo in general is a perfect fit for a plant deck, and I think maybe it's actually strong enough to make plants a thing again. We haven't seen too much of plant decks in the last few months, but I think this card has because if you have this card on the board, then your life bond plants get quite a bit better, and also it's just generally a nice fit for that. Empty Folder said in his reviews that he thinks it has a terrible stat line, but I would heavily oppose that because the 3/7 is just it's a relatively good blocker, but also it just generally synergizes well with that. Obviously, I think you're not going to play this in Marie or Bullock because they have other stuff to do. Also, it's a nice follow-up to the 4-mana 4/3 that creates copies of all the plants you play, because then you can boost your plants HP massively, and that's nice for you. So I'd give the Grand Ginkgo around 3.5 stars, because I think it might just be the card that the plant stat deck needs to be viable again. But also, I'm not too sure, and it's not like a really insane effect. And also, you mainly play it for the first effect, because the second ability, when a friendly plant is destroyed, shuffle it back into your deck. I think that will be very unimportant in most cases. It might be important against Mill, but even then, they are not going to kill too many of your plants, and it's not going to make too much of a difference. But yeah, 3.5 stars. Very solid card. I think this might very well see play. Next up we have Hearty Egg. 1 mana 0/2 food card. Entomb, create 2 Hearty Breakfasts. The Hearty Breakfast 1 mana action. Feed, give the fed unit +1/+1. Also a food. And this is pretty much straightforward food support. We've seen food effects and cards that support food cards with the Hope's Hollow realm that was introduced lately. There was also a DC, but that didn't go too well. And this is a good card for that. It's the food itself. Also, it generates 2 Hearty Breakfasts. It's a 1 mana unit, so it's good to be buffed. The only problem that it has is that it has a very awkward stat line with 0/1. So you need to put quite a few buffs on this for it to be even somewhat of a good unit. Also, if you have 0/1 and you're probably not going to play this in too defensive of a deck, then how the hell are you going to trigger the Entomb effect? And that is my main concern with it. Yes, this can attack. It doesn't have counter-attack, so you can play this in Helldom, but would you really want to play a 0/1 unit in Helldom? I don't think so. So overall, it's a nice little effect for food decks if those become a thing, but even then, I think this is not what makes the food decks good in any way, because it's very slow. It's kind of hard to trigger the Entomb, and also there are just not enough food support cards right now. So I think this is a 2-star card. Next card is Kite Dragon, 3 mana 1/1 dragon from Telira, flying, and summon Scour 2, Herald 2. Then, if the top card of your deck is a dragon, draw it. Also a strength card, of course. And this got in from the Dragons not design competition, but the card design jam thing. I think it was part of that, yeah. Very straight up dragon theme. The Scouring makes you able to put a dragon on top of your deck, and then you will buff that dragon and you will draw it. So I think this goes straight into all of your dragon decks. interestingly enough, I think this could also see play in a robot stack, because then you can kind of arrange which robot you want to have get the buff. Or like, it doesn't even mean to have to be a robot. Maybe you want to play this with the Vox or something. So yeah, I can see a lot of potential in that. It's a bit slow of a card because it's a 3 mana 1/1, and like also dragon decks aren't too aggressive, so I don't know how efficient the flying is. But yeah, I can see this as an inclusion in dragons. Dragons need a lot of support right now. They're kind of underdeveloped, I'd say. But yeah, this is solid 3 stars. Put this in all your dragon decks and maybe experiment it with it in a few other decks, but yeah, not too insane of a card. Next up we have another dragon card, Misfortune Dragon, which is a 3 mana 3/4 strength unit, which with summon, guess if your deck's top card is odd or even. If correct, this gains Duelist. So obviously this also profits a lot from you knowing what card is on top of your deck. That obviously being something that you can do with Scour effects. But my problem with the card is even if you are able to guess correctly what you have on top of your deck, you only really get a 3 mana 3/4 Duelist. And we have had 3 mana 3/3 Duelists in the past with Lizabo Hunter. Right now we also have the Brash Mentor, which is a 3 mana 3/2 Duelist with an effect that can give another unit +1/+1, maybe. I think for the amount of effort that you have to put into this card, 3 mana 3/4 Duelist might just not be strong enough. I think you're probably going to play this in the dragon stack because it's a dragon, but I don't think that it will be too strong of a card. Yes, this combos well with the medic card, the 2 mana 1/2 that gives the next card you play +2 HP and regenerate, because then you can like dual cards over and over again and it won't really lose HP. But that is also like it's a 2-card combo that gives you 3 mana, or like not really even 3 mana, but it gives you a 3/6 Duelist regenerate. Also Duelist regenerate, that's also a combo you see on Dan Smith and his squad, and often when you duel with Dan Smith's squad, you will see your units get down to something like 1 or 2 HP, and then your opponent will play a removal and remove the card, and then it's gone. So I don't really know how useful of a card Misfortune Dragon will be. Yes, you're going to put it into your dragons, so that's something, but I don't think it will make too much of a difference, and you're definitely not going to play like a deck with only odd cards or only even cards, because this is not strong enough of an effect for that. So I'd give this card 2.5 stars because I think it's even worse than Kite Dragon, because Kite Dragon can do pretty cool things if you get it to land on the right cards, and it is always a card that you can just play and it will have a nice effect. And with Misfortune Dragon, often it will just be like, oh, okay, I picked the wrong option, now I have a 3 mana 3/4, and 3 mana 3/4 vanillas are pretty bad. But yeah. Next card is yet another dragon card, also from the design jam. It's a Sea Dragon Whelp, 3 mana 2/3 neutral card. It's a fish dragon and has summon, draw a card. If you drew a fish or a dragon, draw a card. So even if you don't draw a fish or a dragon, this is just a casual 3 mana 2/3 draw a card, which I think is just a solid thing. Which makes it different from the last card, the Misfortune Dragon, because a 3 mana 3/4 vanilla is pretty bad, but I'd consider putting a 3 mana 2/3 draw a card into one of my decks. Maybe you even actually play this in egolessness decks, perhaps. Aside of that, of course, very good in fish and dragon decks. 3 mana, 2/3, draw 1.5 cards. Sure, I'd play that. Obviously, if you scour before you play the Sea Dragon Whelp, you can get it to draw 2 cards more consistently. I don't know how much card draw dragon decks need, and also fish decks are definitely not a thing right now. But I think with like, you're definitely going to put this into your dragon and fish decks and maybe some other decks. So sure, I give this card 3.75 stars because it's probably going to see play. Probably in the dragon deck and maybe even some other decks. So finally, a non-dragon card, the Training Slimage, the 2 mana 2/2 mind card. Summon, create Slime Blast in your hand. Also, it's an Ooze and an Arcanist. And the Slime Blast is a 1 mana action that has exhaust and deal 2 damage to a unit. And this is also a card that when I first saw this, I was like, cool, next card. But when I looked at this closer, then I saw, ooh, this is actually very similar to another card that we had in the game in the past, which is Arcanoblast. And then I remembered Arcanoblast was actually a pretty solid card. And this is even better than Arcanoblast, and by quite a bit. So Arcanoblast was a 3 mana spell, a 3 mana action, deal 2 damage and summon a 2/2. And if you play this on the same turn, so if you play the Training Slimage and the Slime Blast on the same turn, then it's a 3 mana, deal 2 damage and exhaust a unit and summon a 2/2. And this also has the upside that you can play the Slimage on turn 2 and then the Slime Blast on the next turn or later in general. Also, small actions can be useful for triggering the Rictic passive. And yeah, I think this card is actually quite something. So it does have a downside though, because you can't target the opponent's hero, which was one of the main use cases for Arcanoblast. But I think this card has quite the potential. The only real problem that it has is that on the 3 slot, it already has a lot of competition with cards like Mesmerize, Thoughtbolt, or Cleansing Flames. So this card might very well not end up seeing play just because the competition is so good. But going forward, this is a card that you can consider putting into all of your Rictic decks, especially if you want to cast a lot of small actions, to get the XP. So yeah, I give this card 3 stars. Because it's just generally a solid card. It's probably not going to see play right away, but maybe later on. Next card, another card that kind of goes into the similar general area as the last card. It's Vicious Stare, a 1 mana exclusive action for Mind that has Rebound, Fast, and deal 1 damage. Yeah, and this card has several use cases. On one side, it can obviously be used in Ashgurdy to trigger the passive, or like to trigger 2/3 of the passive. And in Rictic, you can use it to cast multiple small spells to activate the passive of Rictic. But it has one big problem, which is that it's basically just a worse version of Plasma Splish, because it has basically the same use cases, and also often it's kind of even worse, or like it's quite a bit worse, because with Plasma Splish you get to deal 3 damage in total for 2 mana, and with Vicious Stare you get to only deal 2 damage. So this card, if Plasma Splish wasn't a thing, then this card may be better, but yeah, basically now this is just a question of is Plasma Splish so good that you want to run 3 copies of it and 3 copies of it that are worse than it? And I think the answer is maybe, but probably not. Plasma Splish is a really solid card though, so maybe you do want to play the Vicious there. I don't know. But for now, I'll give it 2 stars because it is really just a worse version of Plasma Splish. The fast will be mostly irrelevant. This could be interesting if self-ping ever becomes a thing, with cards like the Hydra or like really just cards with rage. But for now, I'm not seeing that at all, especially not in mine. So yeah. And the last card of the week is Vortex of Hatred. 1 mana action, 1 mana neutral action from the Genesis. Fast, give all units +1 attack this turn. This card I can see to have 2 very different use cases. Because on one side, you could just use it to buff your units. The main decks, of course, being in Bullock, because Bullock plays a lot of units. Especially now that it has cards like Ring the Bell to generate a lot of tokens. The other use case in that same direction would be with Flames, because Flames generally just fill their board with tokens and then want to kill the opponent via buffs like this. And I could definitely see this being played in Flames. Also, there it has the upside that you can play it with the Flame Tongue. The Flame Tongue, yeah. Because that card goes off of cheap actions really well. The other use case that I could see would be in decks like Rictic, where you want to remove ward from enemy units, because it gives all units +1 attack, and one mana remove ward from all units could potentially be strong. But I think that is way more unlikely to happen than the Flames/Bullock thing, because you really don't want to give enemy units more attack as a Rictic, so that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, I think I'm going to play this in my Flames deck. Flames are kind of okay right now. They're not seeing too much play, but I think you can probably build a good deck with them. Also, they got buffed last week, and also they got the Firefly, so new card. Bullock also top hero right now, probably. So you may be going to see the Vortex in Bullock. The only problem that it has there is that there are probably better buff cards like Bullfrog Buddies or the 4 mana growth card. But yeah, maybe you're also playing the Vortex alongside these others. So this card, I give 3.5 stars because it's probably going to see play, but maybe not. But also it's a neutral card, so it could potentially be played in a lot of different decks. Yeah, and that was it. And that was the 10 cards from this week. Next week there will hopefully be another episode of this, if I'm not too lazy. Next week there will also be the cost reduction DC, so maybe we can see a few cards from that DC. And yeah, stay well, play collective, and see you soon.